Hello, I'm Arik Korman, CEO at League of Education Voters and the parent of a high school junior of the global majority in the public school system who is accessing special education services. I advocate because of my son, so that every student can get what they need, when they need it, and how they need it. This webinar features closed captions. In order to access captioning, just click on the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen. Spanish interpretation is also available. To access this webinar in Spanish, in your webinar controls at the bottom of your screen, click Interpretation, which is the icon that looks like a globe, then click Spanish. And if you want to hear only Spanish without the original English in the background, click Mute Original Audio. Special thanks to Claudia Azar, who is our interpreter. If you have any technical issues, feel free to use the chat function, which I will monitor throughout the webinar. In case you're not familiar with us, League of Education Voters is a statewide nonprofit working with families, educators, and leaders to create learning environments where every Washington student feels safe, supported, and a positive sense of belonging so that they can achieve academically and access the life they choose. Our website is educationvoters.org. We believe that education is a tool for justice. One of the systems that perpetuate racial and disability injustice experienced by global majority communities is our schools. We believe every child deserves an excellent public education that provides equitable opportunities for success. In order to achieve this, we must pursue radical change in our school systems for equity, justice, and liberation. We must build schools and systems that honor the humanity of every student. Welcome to our free online webinar series, Lunchtime LEVinars. We started this series 12 years ago to share information and build knowledge on important and timely issues. Today's webinar is about artificial intelligence in education. Artificial intelligence, AI, is here to stay. As this technology continues to evolve, educators must prepare students to understand and use these tools. In Washington state, educators are already integrating AI-assisted technologies in schools and supporting students to do the same. In today's webinar, we will spotlight how AI is now being used in the classroom, explore which guardrails must be in place to protect students and families, and discuss skills students will need to be ready for the workforce. And now I would like to ask our panelists to introduce yourselves, starting with Sinan. Sinan, feel free to popcorn to whoever you'd like to go next.
All right, hey guys, my name is Sinan Farawila, and I'm a junior at Hanford High School, which is in Eastern Washington. And I'm also a student representative for the Richland School District. And I just kind of got into that because I just really like advocating for my peers. And actually, currently, we're working on an AI policy, a district-wide one. So I just thought I'd fit in really well here and could learn a lot. So if passed on to Liana.
Hello, my name's Liana Jennings. I'm a senior at Henry M. Jackson High School, which is over in Mill Creek, Washington. I'm also a member of the Association for Washington Student Leaders, which is how I got connected to this awesome opportunity. I am I worked on I was a student board member for House Bill 1834, so I'm really familiar with things like student mental health advocacy, and I think that AI is such a prevalent thing within the mental health field with students, and we're seeing increasing information about it on the news, and so I thought that it would be cool to connect two of my like advocacy passions, if you will, today. Whoever wants to speak next is totally welcome to.
Here, I'll jump in there. Hey, everybody, I'm Babak Mostagimi. I'm a partner at Learner Studio, which is an organization looking at the future of education and how to make it more learner-centered and more equitable for the entire country. I'm a former assistant superintendent here in Gwinnett County, Georgia, so I'm coming to you from my porch in Georgia, so it's great to see everybody. I also have two biological kids who are 13 and 10 and right in the middle of all this work, and my wife is a teacher. And so it's so great to be here today. I will pass it to Bree.
Thanks, Babak. Hey, everybody. I'm Bree. I am a researcher at SERPI, which is the Center on Reinventing Public Education. I live in Seattle. I'm actually dialing in from Boston today. And prior to working at SERPI, where I research AI in education and I research systems change and ways that systems are organized or not to support and center on student needs, especially those most underserved by our systems. Prior to that, I also worked in Seattle Public Schools as a regional superintendent and worked in the public charter system in the Seattle and Tacoma areas. So it is great to be here with you all. And Jolenta, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Bree. Hi, everyone. Jolenta Coleman-Bush. I am the Director of Education, Workforce, and AI Skills for Microsoft's Washington State team. I have a long history working in education. I've worked in schools. I've worked in out-of-school nonprofit organizations focused on college and career readiness, and also worked at the Department of Ed and Early Learning in the city of Seattle. So I come here today always eager and willing to learn more about AI. I think we're all on this journey together, but then to also share some of the things we're learning here at Microsoft as a global tech company. Thank you. And I will pass it on to Camille.
Hello, everyone. My name is Camille Jones. I am the digital education coach in Quincy School District. Quincy is a rural school district in central Washington. We're a farming community, but also have a big tech presence, lots of data centers here. And I am responsible for all of the AI initiatives we have going on in our school district. I help facilitate and lead from our board training, policy adoption, the guidelines and class syllabus type expectations at the classroom level, to professional learning for our staff and families, as well as starting to plan curriculum integration around related to AI for students as well, and the training that they need. Prior to that, I was an elementary teacher for 11 years. I am the 2017 Washington State Teacher of the Year. And I'm just really excited to be here, being part of this work and helping our state grapple with how do we think about what this new frontier means for education and for our students and for our society as a whole. So thanks for having me today, Arik. And I'll pass it to Dr. Sun.
Thank you so much, Camille. And we are having a long partnership and supporting Camille on her AI initiative in the district. Myself, I am a faculty at University of Washington, directing the National R&D Center about generative AI in classroom instruction. We've been funded by the U.S. Department of Education and National Science Foundation. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of Colleague AI, which is a research-backed district-ready AI infrastructure for teaching and learning. So because of this work, the Colleague AI's work, I have the privilege to partner with many educators, students, as well as district leaders, and learning a lot from them. And so hopefully my goal today is to pass along what I learned from them to you all as well. So today I will be the knowledge mover, move around the knowledge and pass along the information I learned from them. With that, Katelyn, are you convenient? I see you are driving. Are you okay to introduce yourself? Or otherwise I will pass the microphone back to Arik.
Yes, I can introduce myself. Sorry,
Okay.
It wasn't allowing me to turn on my microphone for some reason. My name is Katelyn, and I am from Monroe High School. I'm a senior this year, and I am a representative from AWSL Student Leadership Network.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. And yeah, Katelyn, drive safe while you're going there. To begin today's webinar, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral and unceded traditional lands of the 29 federally recognized and non-federally recognized tribes in Washington state, including the Chehalis, Chinook, Colville, Cowlitz, Duwamish, Hoh, Jamestown S'Klallam, Kalispel, Lower Elwha Clallam, Lummi, Makah, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Nooksack, Port Gamble S'Klallam, Puyallup, Quileute, Quinault, Samish, Soxweattle, Shoalwater Bay, Skokomish, Snoqualmie, Spokane, Squaxin Island, Stillaguamish, Suquamish, Swinomish, Tulalip, Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Upper Skagit, and Yakima. We give thanks to elders both past and present, our Native and Indigenous colleagues, and the land itself. A couple of housekeeping items before we begin. You'll notice a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. This is a space for you to submit questions to us. If time permits, we'll have about 10 minutes for questions after the panel discussion wraps up. As always, feel free to send any feedback about the webinar quality to us on the chat function or at info@educationvoters.org. And speaking of the chat function, you're welcome to use it to check in and comment on anything you hear. Welcome, Sinan, Katelyn, Liana, Camille, Babak, Bree, Min, and Jolenta. We're going to be asking 4 questions today, which are, how is AI being used now in the classroom by students and educators? What are some AI bright spots in Washington State and around the country? Which guardrails must be in place to protect students and families? And which AI skills will students need to be ready for the workforce? So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first question, which is, how is AI now being used? And Liana, Sinan, Katelyn, feel free to talk about your experiences as students and also what your peers are doing.
Well, I'm happy to start off if nobody else wants to. I think that I personally was very heavily anti-AI in a way for a long time because I'd always been taught that it was kind of like cheating. Like you weren't allowed to use it. I would watch my peers use it for things like essays in class and kind of the standard thing that you think about. But one thing that changed my perspective on that was when I started applying to colleges. I was so overwhelmed with where do I want to go? What's the cost breakdown? Money is a big factor for me. And so I was applying for a really niche major too, and that made a big impact in my decision. And AI was so incredibly helpful for me in generating all of this data and comparing them and analyzing the programs at one school and how it compares to the other one. Why do I want to make this decision? And who accepts my transfer credit? And it was so helpful for me. Another thing that I've noticed is both my parents are elementary school principals in 2 different districts. And I do an internship at a local Title I elementary school that's dual language. It's really cool. But one thing that I've seen AI being used for in elementary schools is actually for coloring pages, which I found really cool. Kids are so creative, and I think that one of the things is that execution sometimes they struggle with because they're still learning these skills, but AI was able to, when a student was having a breakdown in class, because it was actually really funny. They couldn't make a unicorn dolphin, and they were really struggling with this concept of like, I can't get the wings and the horn, like the vision wasn't coming together. And I was like, why don't we use AI to generate us a coloring page that you can work with? And it worked out really well. And it was really cool to see that being implemented into the classroom in a positive way. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the best uses of AI is to like synthesize large amounts of information into something like consumable. Recently we did like this survey on social emotional learning, which is like a class that we have through Character Strong, and we got like over 2,000 responses. So we needed a way to just like look at all of the answers in like presentable way that's, so you don't have to read through thousands. And AI was just like a really good tool for that. And I think definitely in classrooms it's used a lot by like educators to help plan lessons and stuff, sometimes a little too much. But I think another thing that's really good, because I think a lot of students, like Liana said, think of AI as something that's cheating or not allowed, or just if they're going to use it, they're just going to use it to do the entire task for them. But I think something that's really important to teach in classrooms is AI literacy, teaching them how you can use it for for essay outlining, or for like just getting a bunch of information out there quickly, or like even for it to explain math problems to you instead of just do the math problem, give me the answer, write the essay for me. So I think teaching it that way is something that's very important.
I'll piggyback off that. That's been something that's just been really heavy on my heart over the last 2 years, really. And this year, we have been working through developing an AI literacy framework to help us really be clear about what we want, the AI literacy skills we want students to develop in elementary school, in middle school, and high school. And we've taken this K-12 approach because, I mean, I hear stories all the time of elementary or even younger students at home, talking to Alexa to put them to sleep at night. And I want them to know that that's not a person that they're talking to, and to have an appropriate context for what that means in their life, and for their parents to understand that too, like what these possible long-term implications can be. And so there are teachers in our district, and we know students are using AI lots when they're not being asked to, whether or not it's within the bounds of what's accepted. But we also know there are some teachers who are, the innovators, and they're out there doing things with their students as well. And sometimes I hear stories of that happening in ways where, maybe they're not teaching their students to think really critically about the outputs that they're getting back. And that also concerns me. So I think it's kind of the approach I'm trying to take here is finding these designated classrooms with these designated skills that we're really going to be intentional that every student learns as they go along through the grade bands. And then also having a really clear instructional routine around, if you do choose to bring AI into your classroom for students to engage with, how does that look? What are the human AI human framework that OSPI has developed for us has been such a good, simple frame to structure those conversations for the classroom, but really helping every teacher to understand this, like getting to the H at the end is the most important part. And if you can't do that, like, please don't ask your kids to go and do something with AI for your class. So those are the kind of two pieces of it that I feel like we're putting the most emphasis on in developing and training around, rather than just saying, like, let's try to do as much as we can with AI, because we want students to understand and teachers to understand the healthy skepticism we need to have as we engage in it going forward.
I want to build off of something that Camille said. It's because I think it's so important. It's really building the capacity of educators is first and key in kind of any kind of AI integration. Educators and teachers are going to be kind of the well-positioned and best positioned to kind of model that responsible use of AI and to provide kind of the insights of how we properly responsibly integrate AI into teaching and learning, into standards, etc. So like really building the capacity of educators is key. So again, that they can model that responsible use and provide kind of that informed guidance to students on how they should be using AI. So I think that is so important. And I think that has been what I've seen in the state is the focus. It's like really having educators use the tools.
I would like to add to that and just say that I personally have seen more educator and teacher use of AI than actual student use, which I think is quite interesting because there's so many lesson plans and PowerPoint presentations and different education lessons that have been built using AI because teachers are learning how to do that, and it just saves so much time in the job. But on the student side, I am a dually enrolled Running Start student, so I have 3 classes at my high school, and the rest of them are all college classes, some online, some non. And I'm doing a capstone project right now, and this capstone is very niche, it's very specific, and it's very difficult to find scholarly sources on because it's kind of in that social sciences background. But I've been able to use AI responsibly, not for the actual information collection, but for finding scholarly sources that work for the capstone, which I think is quite interesting because sometimes scholarly databases are quite hard to navigate, and being able to use the AI source of kind of just finding and gathering that information has been quite helpful to then look into on my own.
I love all these different use cases. For me, I always think of AI kind of like as a harmonica, right? Sometimes I look at people playing a harmonica and go like, how did you make that amazing sound come out? And then I try it and like it doesn't quite work, right? And so like the neat thing about AI is really it's just like a harmonica. It depends on whose hands it's in and like how you're using it and how you're wanting to make music with it, right? Like I think that some of the most inspiring things that I've seen from AI with young people is I was actually talking with a seventh grader out of Philadelphia who is actually using AI. There's a program called Inkwire that allows you to build your own sort of project-based learning plans. And she was really interested in food insecurity and just didn't have a way of exploring that on her own. And she was told by her teacher, like, you still need to learn like fractions and decimals and that sort of stuff. And what Inkwire did was it took her passion around food insecurity, added in those standards, those like academic content standards, and then developed out like a project plan for here's how she could explore that out in her community with people and stuff like that. And so like what I see in situations like that is examples where AI is getting us to like look up off the screen at one another and be like highly relational with one another and like enable like educators and young people to do things that would just be really difficult or nearly impossible to do otherwise. And it's just really, really cool to see. Obviously, lots of other examples too, but I think those moments where AI is being used to make us more human and to bridge towards like the skills that we need for the future are the ones that really bring me hope.
Yeah, I can build a little bit off that, and I can give a little bit of national context too, maybe as the researcher on the panel. When you look at studies of at least who's reporting using AI within the last year, for sure, a majority of both students and educators and also college students are reporting using AI regularly for their work. My guess, and I think one of the someone was saying this here, is my guess is that almost everybody, especially students, are using it. And like everyone is saying here, it really depends on the setting in which you're in and how you use it and what it looks like. And Camille, I really appreciated your example. A lot of what we study districts that are what we would call kind of systemically adopting AI, and we're trying to understand what it looks like for a student who's in a school that is a part of a district that is actually being thoughtful, intentional, and strategic. So that it's not random, but it actually is with some intention in mind. And there's training, like Sanan was saying, like there's support to teachers and ideally support to students. In those systems, what we see is students can be very engaged and being very agentic over their own learning. So we've seen schools where students are on committees that are actually advising and setting policy alongside the adults for how AI is going to be used. And we've seen students actually in their STEM classes design AI-led tools. So students who actually have some engineering and software design backgrounds, designing tools that are to help the system do things like a chatbot for parents or like a scheduling support agent. So there's some really great examples there. What we also see reported nationally is that I don't know if this is, at least within the last year, it may be updated, or this may be out of date because things move so fast, but within the last year, the most common use of technology by youth was actually for social companionship, not for academics or social companionship tools. So students are very much reporting that they're using different types of AI-driven tools beyond, I think, what we mean just by learning content. I also find, and I think we're hearing it here, that when you talk to students on the ground, when you talk to adults on the ground, oftentimes the first thing that comes up is plagiarism and cheating, and that's what AI is. You talk to students, and of course, they acknowledge that there's the potential to cheat using AI. They're not blind to that, but I typically hear students say, but I don't want to give everything up to AI. I don't want to lose who I am. I still want to learn. I want to figure out how to do it well. And I definitely hear from students, and we have students here we can ask these questions to directly, that there's a deep desire to, of course, be prepared for the world that eventually schooling will be done and we'll be entering into, and what that looks like. And in many cases, the adults ourselves are still trying to figure out what we need to know in order to steward and shepherd and support students in that work. So it's actually been very uplifting to talk to students who really want to use this in creative, responsible, and often like socially good ways.
To offer, like I mentioned during the introduction of who I am, I said today I will be the knowledge mover. And indeed, I'm doing my job of moving the knowledge. This is a concrete example offered by a seventh grade social study teacher. And what she's doing here is she really wanted to do this interdisciplinary STEM education integrated into social studies. And traditionally, without AI, will take her hours, weeks to put together some data, integrate all the material together, and work with her students throughout the entire quarter to gather data, generating all this interesting chart in order to do what she's trying to do. What she's trying to do in class is this simulation. And she's in social study, and a couple of months ago, our Washington state had that historical flood, and she's thinking, how do I make my social study more relevant to what is happening right now in my students' life? And so she said, well, you are now the council members. You represent different community, you represent different interests. You need to engage in a debate and decision-making of how to allocate $200,000 total flood response budget. And so the students need to know how to measure the impact of the flood, where the flood situation, it need to be live updated information. The students need to gather, if I invest in this amount to address this issue, what is the impact of the flood control, right? All these need a substantial data collection and to live data collection as well to map out the flood situation in different counties, different track days. And what she did is to use like a simple AI functionality and be able to connect, scan the county website, scan public media in order to gather all this data in different Skagit County, Snohomish County. And in class, their main task is to, now you can see the teachers can move like different groups, different representative can propose a different budget allocation plan. The student can see the impact immediately. They can debate it as well based on this chart, right? So in the classroom, the teachers and students spend a whole lot of time on discussing, utilizing the information, rather than traditionally spend a lot of time on gathering, create those kind of tools. Now, when you think about it from a depth of knowledge perspective, the teachers are able to engage with the students in a much higher cognitive level of thinking, discussion, debate. There's critical thinking, reasoning, verbal expression skills we think the future workforce need. So let me pause there to summarize the example I wanted to illustrate. This is also what we observe. At the very beginning, when people were thinking about a school's adoption of AI, they're more thinking about administrative burden reduction, improve teachers' work efficiency. Now people are discussing how do we fundamentally transform our pedagogy, the classroom instruction between teacher, student, among students, so that we can cultivate future workforce ready skills. This is what we see the frontier of the discussion happening in the classroom in the school level.
Wow, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, man. That's fascinating, and love the interactive nature of that and how it can build on human-centered skills, and we'll be getting to that later on. Yeah, that leads us into the next question, which is bright spots. I mean, you obviously just showed us one, man, which was super cool. Wondering what other bright spots are out there. Bob, like you talked about one with Inquire and the food program that you mentioned, but are there other things that need to be spotlighted, either in Washington State or certainly around the country that we should know about?
I'll jump in real quick with something right here in Georgia. So when I was working at Gwinnett County Public Schools, we actually launched an AI themed high school and started designing it way before like ChatGPT was a thing and those sorts of things. And so we kind of got lucky. And to be really clear, the design isn't like a magnet high school or anything like that. It's just like a regular high school, the zone for everybody. And we had this idea of what happens if you build out a series of AI readiness skills within young people, both at the high school level and K-8 leading up into it, right? And not necessarily looking at like only technical skills of like how do you use this or what happens with the machine learning and the data science behind it, but really making it embedded in all subject areas, really thinking about creative problem solving, ethics, collaborative leadership, design thinking skills, all those sorts of things that we know are going to be really important workforce skills in the future and those sorts of things. And so I want to give a shout out to the team who's now they're graduating their first class this year. So they're 4 years in now. They're graduating their first 4-year class now. They've graduated class actually every single year. Remarkable graduation rates, kids showing all sorts of improvements. But the big thing is that almost all of them have a sense of what AI is and isn't, and what they want and don't want an AI future to look like so they can advocate for themselves, right? And so I think these places, and I think Camille was talking about it, where like young people actually understand what's going on and aren't just like, it's not like put a kid on a laptop and go, but it's more of like, how is this integrated into your day? What do you want and not want from it? How do you shape the world of AI this emerging? This sort of readiness for an AI infused world is I think something that's really important that's happening at Secondary High School in Georgia, and I think it's starting to happen in a lot of other places across the country as well.
I want to just also shout out Gwinnett County, and to say the way I met Babak was leading the efforts there, and we were trying to learn from the Gwinnett County's being one of the best examples or first examples in the country. So it's I think it's certainly the longest standing high school that we are aware of that size and scale. That's looking at, and I think one thing I'll just underscore, and then I'll give some different examples that I appreciated, is they were both building out AI literacy curriculum where students are just learning AI, but there also was AI embedded in the content areas, so it was used in different ways. We spend time at SERPI looking for bright spots. We talk to early adopter school systems, and we talk to state leaders, and we talk to teachers. And what I'd say is that there are a lot of different early stage examples, because AI it's a technology, so it's not one thing. So the ways that it can be used can really range. And actually, what probably matters most is that the school or the system have a very clear vision of what they want and a clear problem that they want to solve. Just kind of randomly using AI to without that kind of purpose means that it's may or may not actually be working toward some broader goal. But when we see strong leadership and vision, it's pretty incredible what's already starting to come about. And I will also say that I think we're seeing that we're in a like R&D stage right now, where the next many years will be about testing, piloting, trying ideas, not necessarily launching permanent permanent things yet, because the technology is changing really quickly. We are all still learning it, and there are very real concerns, as many real concerns as there are many real opportunities. And as many of us know, we're all kind of trying to navigate that live real time. But it's a really exciting time. I was just meeting with a former state superintendent of education who works now in AI, and he was like, I've been in this for 30 plus years. I am the most excited about the potential of this work, because of what's possible. So with that, just a quick examples. There's a district in Washington State called Elma School District. It's a smaller district out near Aberdeen. And they had a vision. They had a vision well before generative AI came out. It was around career connected pathways. And they'd actually already visited Switzerland. Their leadership had to look at a VOTEC career pathways model. They have competency-based learning, which means essentially like using competencies to guide how one learns more than just seat time or certain like grades line standards. And so what they have found is that AI isn't their goal, but AI is working in the background to help them use information from classes and students' work better to guide students on their career-based pathways. and to do more competency-based learning that they have been trying to do for years. And finally, AI kind of gave them a technical solution. I was going to shout out Quincy, but Camille, I'm going to let you talk. Quincy is another, we have two great, between Babak and Camille, two great examples here. And then there are some other interesting emerging models. ASU Prep is a set of different schools, all affiliated with ASU in Arizona, and they are piloting a school right now where students will get 2 to 3 hours of, kind of computer-led personalized learning, and then other forms of Socratic seminar and self-guided learning connected to their careers. And they're piloting those schools in a few different states. And I think that's kind of interesting. One or two other examples in Washington State would be Summit Public Schools is trying to reimagine how they use data to create new versions of master schedules for students. And next year, I believe they will be piloting ways of kind of reorganizing high school students' time iteratively over the year. And we also are working with we're working with Summit and a few other districts in Washington State that are in general trying to look at how to use data better. So Highline and Yakima school districts are also using they're building back-end data systems that will allow teachers to be able to make better decisions using safe, protected, secure, and integrated student data in ways that, for many of us who are former classroom teachers, we always were trying to do, and we never could quite figure out how to do it because systems often don't talk to each other when you're actually working in a school. And we are finding that AI is finally able to help get those systems to talk to each other. So that's all a lot of really exciting, very early stage work. Camille, I'm gonna put you on the spot and pass things over to you, given I know you got some great examples.
Yeah, I think there's several different things that I could talk about. Kind of what you talked about Elma doing, I was thinking about our CTE department, and just they've built a chatbot, an agent that helps them write their frameworks for their classes. And, we have lots of new teachers coming out of industry, especially within CTE, and we've designed this tool that understands all of the educational frameworks, the pedagogies that we want to see in their classes. And then they can put in, their topic, their content area, and it can also help them tease through all of these educational standards from different integrated content areas, and then plan out assessments and units that are really locally contextualized for community-driven need, and applied in a way that the students have to engage beyond the AI to in their problem or project-based learning that they're doing in those classes. And the teachers, I mean, our CT director has a great slide with all the stats on how much time it has saved the teachers, but the level of learning in those classrooms also, just in the last year since they've been using this tool, they have been blown away by. So that's been one really bright spot for us here. And the other one that I've been just thinking of for my own experience this year is what we've done with families. This fall, we had an hour of AI event that was sponsored by our high school CTE department, our middle and high school CTE department. And they put it on with our elementary STEAM teachers were involved as well. And it was hosted at the high school for elementary students and their families. And as we were developing this AI literacy framework, initially the CT department came to the district and said, we want to do this event and we want to make it a K-12 thing just to get people started talking about AI. And we said, okay, so we were starting to plan it. And then as we were developing this framework and starting to have a vision for it, and we really started realizing, well, we want to be careful not to promote this as hey, elementary kids, AI is so cool, come and have fun and play with this new toy. And so as we were thinking about in elementary, we really want our focus to be on AI awareness, helping them understand where it is in the world around them already, how they're interacting with it every day, how to think about it a little more critically, and then how parents of these young students can talk with them in ways that they can engage with their kids. I have a second grader, and she, as we were planning the event, she said, well, Mom, what's AI? And it took me a second to think of how to explain it to her in a way that would make sense to her. And I'm like, this is what I do all day long, all the time. How does any other parent ever answer this question for their 7-year-old? And so we really leaned into that, and it was really well attended. I was wondering if elementary families would feel like, this isn't really something we care that much about, but it was very well attended. It was, we had great reviews from the families, and we also got to introduce to them our vision for our AI literacy framework that we wanted to continue developing, get their feedback on that. So that was a really great experience for me to realize, like, one, how important it is that we are walking hand in hand as educators and parents to support our kids 24 hours around their day, as they're going to be engaging with AI their whole entire life. And then also, like, how do we take steps into doing that in a way that's really meaningful?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Camille. And that does bring us into our next question, which is about guardrails, protections for students and families. And I've got a question from the audience to actually kick us off with that, which is, how do you protect students, especially young students' creativity, and make sure their own unique styles do not become part of the training for the models of AI that they're going to be using, so that they still have a chance to develop their creativity without fear of the AI copying and using their own unique creativity?
Okay, I am one tech developer, so I'm gonna start the conversation, and then whoever other are tech developer, you should definitely chime in here. Um, for us, we never use our users' data for training purpose, because we build the technology in a way that we mainly utilize users' data for inference purpose, basically to generate a response for you. We don't use the data to go back training the model. So that is one part of the question. The other part of the question there is I think is a deeper, more broader, involve everybody, which is how do we still preserve and make our human intelligence thrive in the future, given how artificial intelligence improving, enhancing so fast, right? What is our human intelligence place in the future? And then how do we preserve, quote unquote, the uniqueness of our human intelligence creativity when AI start to self-learning and be able to improve itself, no longer need human guidance to improve itself? Then how do we still preserve our human intelligence? I am still the one who still feel human intelligence, human species is the species we should protect and make our species thrive in the future as well. So for that, it's beyond a tech developer. It needs everybody, from parent, from teachers, from students themselves, to understand how to properly using AI, how to create instructional tasks, learning tasks in the way that we really cultivate human intelligence. So with that, I'm going to pause here, invite other panelists to join.
I'll jump in on that one. I agree. And I'd actually like one of the bigger premises here is like, how do we protect creativity in general? Like, we actually know that young people are the most creative the day they walk into kindergarten and the least creative when they leave 12th grade, right? Like, we have a lot of research and evidence showing that, which shows and sort of indicts our own teaching practices and our own like systems and structures that we've built around young people, right? And so to the extent that we can create more opportunities to build what we've been calling pro-human skills, meaning oftentimes when we think about AI, we think about augmentation, i.e. like adding on, or replacement of human skills. But we rarely think about, does the AI actually cause me to become better at being a human? Does it actually improve my collaboration? Does it actually build my creativity, my compassion, my relational intelligence, and those sorts of things? And there are some tools, for example, like there's a really neat small group instruction tool for math that does this, right? It's called OCO Labs. It creates small group environments for elementary students to work together on real problems, but pushes them to talk to one another and to collaborate and to build like sort of off screen look at one another and those sorts of things. And I think those are the types of use cases that really, really improve the possibilities of what learning, what teaching and learning can do. And yes, 100%, we always need to be careful what data we're putting in what type of environments and models. And that's where like having sort of platform layers that protect that student data and that student privacy will be very, very important, both in schools and outside of schools where kids are using AI all the time.
Yeah, I am curious about policies. So yeah, and Bree, I'm sure you've seen a lot about what's been good in that realm.
I was just going to say, from the policy angle, I think what these sets of examples highlight is that protecting student data is not something that a student or a teacher is the primary problem solver on. This is really a question for the district at the district central office level, and it gets a little in the weeds, but a lot of this is about how policies are set up to allow effective use of tools and tools that are collecting data safely and appropriately. Colleague AI is a great example of a tool that is funded and has a track record of and can show you how it does not take or use student data. That's not the case with all tools. We've heard from many districts about how challenging it is. We've talked to central office, often technology or operational officers who often are, it's not that you basically need to ask or require a tech company to not take the data. It's not something that you even can give permission to. They are finding that they have to require permission not to be taken. And so if there are teachers in systems where the tools are not under contract or where there's not support at the central office level safeguarding this, there's a higher risk of data being misused or taken. An irony is that a system that has no AI policy or has fully banned AI tools may not actually be protecting accidental or intentional AI use outside of those policy parameters. So we are finding that it's really hard, and it's not like anyone wants data to be taken. But what we know is that districts are many of them they're in enrollment declines, their budgets are in decline, they're making cuts already. So it's very hard for them to add staff to be able to do the amount of work to do the contracting and procurement, which I know is that's not a sexy term to be talking about on a panel, but it's a very real reality of what needs to be in place. So there need to be new safeguards, model policy. Ideally, we would be seeing model policy language for creating contracts with ed tech tools. And also there are some districts that are doing outcomes-based contracts, and those are contracts that are taking it to another level where you actually get both sides, both parties, the tool and the district, to agree to usage minimums and then actual student outcomes. And so that's a little different than just protecting the data. But I would argue that anytime a district is going into contract with a tool vendor, that they should be very wise about both protecting their student data and also starting to look for examples of this tool working on their students' interest or demonstrating that it actually is doing well by students. So there's a lot of work in the back end, and I think that there's a need for resourcing and investing in central office tech and operational leads to maybe be in learning cohorts or to get their own AI literacy training because the systems themselves often don't have the resources to do that. There are also districts like Gwinnett County, and I believe like Quincy, I know Peninsula School District is another one in our state that are very far ahead in negotiating and driving these contracts and often could serve as mentors to other districts that are trying to figure this out. I think especially for smaller districts that are very under-resourced, it's risky that student data may not be safeguarded simply because the systems are not built to do that unless there's active work to put those safeguards in place.
Yeah, and you're talking about work at the district level, Bree. Could there be a state policy that would cover this, or does it have to be something that's worked on at the district level only?
I think that it helps for sure for there to be state and district alignment on this. We talk a lot to state leaders, and states set guidance. They try to influence and shape how districts are going to set their policy. There actually are many federal policies that already protect student data and student data rights that districts use and understand, and many of those policies are already reflected in handbooks. But the part here that's missing is the unknown around contracts. And so, yeah, I think that, and I know because we've talked to state officials in Washington State that there is interest in figuring out how to create some of this model language. And there are some There are some examples online at OSPI, but I do think that there's more work to be done to get folks acquainted to what we already have in our state and to get our state officials equipped to be able to support districts in figuring this out. There's a bit of like R&D in this area too, where what are good model contracts? What works? What are ways to expedite this so that you're not spending all your time going back and forth in negotiations with different tool vendors? And then what do you do for teachers who have tools on their phone or tools on their laptop at home? It's very, very hard to know how to regulate this fully. I would argue that all teachers need to be have training and an understanding of how the ways that they upload data may be very, very important for safeguarding their students' privacy rights.
Yeah, that makes sense. Quick question in the chat, which is, are ESDs in a position to be helpful?
Yes, so we know there are ESDs and also there's a yes, the ESDs there are ESDs assigned to each region. They and I will actually pass it over because I believe Min, it looks like you actually may be working directly with the ESDs. I know that we have interfaced with several different ESD leads. They can absolutely be a helpful kind of thought partner or guide along with districts in navigating this.
Mm-hmm. Totally, I would echo that. Um, I would volunteer my email address, contact information. If you need it, I can connect you with Peterson ESD, Capital Region ESD, ESD 112, a couple of ESD in Washington State. They actively partner with the school district to figure out the details as Bree just shared and mentioned.
Great, great. Well, I'd like to pivot to human-centered skills. We talked about that a little bit earlier. What skills will folks need moving forward in the workforce? Because this is such a vast unknown, and AI has so much potential moving on, but we want to make sure that our students are ready for the careers of the future. And I know, Jolenta, this is like your area of expertise. I know, Babak, you're doing a lot of work in here. Also, students, I'd like you to think after this question, if you were to wave a magic wand, what would you want AI to be able to do? So I'm going to come back to each of you for that. So stay tuned. But yeah, what skills do students need to be ready?
Yeah, Eric, we think about this a lot. Of course, AI literacy is going to be important. It's the understanding of AI, like what it is, how it works, what it produces, its limitations, right? And how to use it responsibly. Like that is going to be key and core. And like while we're going to see kind of an increase of kind of those technical skills, especially, AI and big data, cybersecurity, tech literacy, right behind those skills and increasing their use is those human-centered skills, right? It is, foundational skills like creativity, flexibility, curiosity, analytical thinking, right? Those are the skills, according to the World Index report, that are going to increase over the next like 5 years. And so, I always say we continue to double down on the things that we know that students need, right? It's kind of that analytical thinking, critical thinking, proficiency in reading, writing, and math are always going to be core. And so I think that's what's important. AI is a tool, but those human skills are the superpower.
So at Learner Studio, we often say that the purpose of learning, the purpose of education is to inspire and prepare young people for life, career, and democracy, right? And so if that's true, and I think most people would agree to most of that, right? And this is all happening in the age of AI, right? Then there's like a whole new slate of skills that are really, really important, right? And I think there's many of the skills that Jolenta was saying are absolutely the ones, right? And the thing that we shouldn't do is try and forecast out like what the job will be and won't be, because I don't think no one's able to actually predict that. The place I always go is like worst case scenario. We know that they're going to be human beings and we're going to be together, right? And so updating and upskilling everyone around like how we better interact with one another, how we show compassion and work together well and collaborate well with one another, all those sort of like relational intelligence related skills are the ones where like no matter what happens, like those are going to be important. And they help out with the civic engagement pieces as well that I think we often underestimate. And kind of no matter what the jobs are, they'll help out there too. Like being a good human is pretty much a solid bet all the way around. And so yeah, I always say like when in doubt, just be a good human and like work on those skills and we'll be all right.
Mhm. Yeah, Camille or Bree, Min, anything you'd like to add to that?
I just think as a parent, I agree with, we've brought it up several times here, how important it is for teachers to understand everything that's happening so that they can respond and help students grapple through. Um, I'm thinking about my daughter and like really being able to like critically evaluate sources, all the content that's coming at her all day long from school and in and out of school and in her life beyond. That to me is like the number one thing. Like if all she's able to do is like really, really understand how to evaluate resources and then think and take those things and use them to communicate and process and use tools to help take her next steps with the information she has. That's to me like I would think that was so great if she was a master at that when she graduated. But I think we're a long way from preparing her in that way at the same time. So that's like always top of mind for me. How do we shift that? And our new ELA standards that are out for the initial adoption right now are step in that direction. I'm really excited about.
I think one of the best skills regarding AI that you can have after you graduate is just knowing when to use it and when not to. Like if you're a CEO, maybe you shouldn't fire all of your employees and have them be replaced by AI. Or just like in general, when you're doing projects and such, just to know when to use it and not. And one way that that's being implemented in classrooms, actually, I know this is something Camille mentioned way earlier, but is there's some classrooms that are using like a red light, yellow light, green light system, or like maybe even a number system, like 1 through 5. 1 would be like, yes, use all the AI you want, you're encouraged to. 5 would be no AI at all. And somewhere in the middle would be like, you could use it for editing assistance or like brainstorming, something like that. So I think that's definitely a good model that kids can learn and apply to their future.
Yeah, that's great. And also curious for students, Liana and Sanan and Katelyn, as we're wrapping up, feel free to share any final thoughts, but I'm also curious to hear, like, if you could wave a magic wand and you could design your own AI tool or use AI in a particular way, what would be your dream use of it? What would you like it to look like?
I personally, this was actually one thing that Babak actually mentioned that kind of sparked my brain was the interpersonal communication. I've noticed that I really enjoy the public speaking and the advocacy, and I could talk to anyone for hours. I'm a barista, so I love chatting with people, but that's something that I notice is less and less prevalent as I age and everybody my age kind of gets sucked more and more into the digital universe. And I think that it's such an incredible tool, and it has given me so many blessings to be able to communicate effectively and have the ability to listen to other people, and kind of like what I believe it was Camille was saying about synthesizing information and then applying it. The same thing comes from interactions with people. And I think that learning from mistakes, and if there was any way that we could get AI to somehow aid us in that understanding of human connection and listening and communicating effectively, I think that would be such an incredible tool.
If I could wave a magic wand, I think I would definitely have AI have more expansion in the like accessibility department, because I mean already there's meta AI glasses that can describe what is in front of you to someone who maybe is visually impaired, and that can help them, shop and see what they're actually buying, and just can also like eliminate the need for walking sticks and stuff like that. And I think there's so much like translation just in front of you. You can go anywhere and talk to anyone and have an AI translate it to automatically. So I think um just more like accessibility to more things and more people. that could be universal with AI is definitely something that even could be a thing in these coming years as AI gets more advanced. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Katelyn, I know you're driving, but if you are able to speak, do you have any final thoughts or any wishes for AI?
I actually just got home, and so that's why I turned off my video because I didn't want so much stuff going on the screen. But I would just love it if, and this seems like a small idea, but I just think it is quite relevant right now. If AI was able to give an unbiased view on every single topic, because I feel like, at least in my personal opinion, the way that you frame a question to AI is often construed a specific way, and it kind of tells you what you want to hear. But if you were able to get a completely concise and accurate view of everything, no matter how you preface something, I think that would be incredibly helpful to research.
Yeah, that's a super cool idea. If there was a way to be culturally relevant and not be biased in doing that. Anyway, I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you, Katelyn. Thank you, Sinan. Thank you, Liana. Thank you, Camille, Babak, Bree, Min, and Jolenta. And I really appreciate all of you who were participating and submitting questions. Our next webinar will take place on Thursday, June 25th. A panel of Washington State Teachers of the Year, and Camille, you're invited, of course, will discuss how we can ensure our classroom supports students to be future ready. So yes, AI could certainly be part of that. Registration information will be shared in the follow-up email, which you should receive in about 24 hours, and will be on our website, educationvoters.org. Just go to events, then lunchtime webinars. Spanish interpretation and captioning in English will be available. Thank you to each of you for joining us today. If you have additional questions or comments, please send them to me at Arik, A-R-I-K, at educationvoters.org. A recording of today's presentation will be available on our website and will be sent to you in the follow-up email. Please share this recording with your friends and colleagues. If you'd like to learn more about League of Education Voters or support our work, please visit our website, educationvoters.org. Thank you again for attending. Each one of us has the right to feel safe and valued. Together, we will fight for a world in which true educational and economic equity exists. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Liana, Camille, Babak, Bree, Min, Jolenta, Sinan, and Katelyn, thank you again for being here. Thank you so much for all you do for Washington students, families, and educators. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.